So why don't we start off with you telling us who we have the pleasure of talking to today?
Good afternoon. My name is Petty Officer First Class Austin Haltom.
It's lovely to meet you today, sir. Uh, Before we get into anything else, I'm curious, why did you choose the Navy? Did your family have a history of Navy service?
Yes. So I chose the Navy. My great grandfather was in the Second World War. Ironically enough, we had the exact same job, and it just by family trade, by just random, it just turned out that way. Then my grandfather joined the Navy as well, 1946, just at the end of the war. And then I ended up joining. So kind of a family legacy.
It's lovely. Uh, was this always your plan to go into the Navy, or was it kind of a plan B, or how'd that turn out?
Actually, the Navy was a plan B for me. It's funny, often it's people's plan B or plan C choice, but yeah, it was my plan B. And in hindsight's 2020. If I had a time machine, this would have been my first pick. I went to college first. I got to about my associates, ran out of money, and I was not going to go into debt to finish school when there was the thought in the back of my head, military was always an option, and so I just went for it.
Alrighty. Uh, a thing I always hear about people's time in is that there's kind of colorful nicknames that come about when you serve. Do you have any experience with that, or how did you get one yourself?
I don't know if I'd exactly say I had a nickname. I sure with some close friends. I've been called Papa a lot, just because I've always had an old fashioned mentality or an old man's kind of mentality, and most of my career I've been a supervisor, and so really only the first 2.5 years of my career was I a craftsman before I started supervising shops. So I've just kind of always been the old man of the shop, you know.
Uh, Now you've been a recruiter for a little while
I
now.
have, yeah, five
Uh,
years.
what led you to want to do this?
Um, Truth be told, this is so. I've first off, I've been in the Navy about 14 years, going on 14 years, and I've had a unique career. And so and totally by choice, I've been on more ships or I've been to more commands than most have in their 20-year span. And so honestly, I went to recruiting thinking it was something totally different. And I thought I was going to take a break really and just kind of, in my mind, I thought I was going to hold down a desk, process people walking in the door. But it's so much more than that. And it turned out to be such a reward that I ended up converting to career recruiting. So now this will be for the remaining years of my career, my job.
And what is it that's so satisfying about this field for you?
Every day is a new day. Every day is a new day. You get to meet all different kinds of people. There's just so much going on, and honestly, there's that reward, I guess, at the end. The light at the end of the tunnel, because there are, once a month, once a while, you'll get that one person who's just an awesome, stellar person who it's really satisfying to be able to help them, set them on their way, set them on their journey. And it's a reward to do that for everybody, but there's just a couple, once in a while people that you can tell like that person is going to be a difference out there.
To be able to help set them on
Yeah,
that
and help
path.
set them up on that. Yeah. And so, yeah, that was one of the reasons I converted to career recruiting is in my job title used to be a hull technician, and now it's Navy career counselor. And so, I really have taken that to heart where and I'm sure you can relate to that where you sit down, you're talking with somebody and you're really trying to find the why behind the why behind the why, what makes them tick, what their goals, aspirations are, what they're trying to chase, what their dreams are. How can you kind of help set them up on that path? So um, it's been great.
That's awesome. Kind of moving back towards the early parts of your career, seems like a lot of people have some really funny stories about their time in boot camp or their early service. Is there anything that you can remember from boot camp that stands out to you?
Um, I was a goofball. Made a lot of mistakes in boot camp. Got real strong. I accidentally. So there are while you're in recruit training command, there are several jobs, that the recruits will do. In a boot camp division, mine was 246, but that was back in 2012. Um, there are certain positions, right? So out of the whole division, there might be a division of say 90 people. There's going to be two recruits. They're sort of the recruits in charge of the recruits. There's going to be a couple of recruits that are in charge of the watch bill because you're always going to be standing watch, standing duty over your spaces. There are people responsible for mail and administrative, position jobs, stuff like that. And so the two positions of leadership, they call it the AROC and the RPOC. One, whenever you're all marched, when you're all lined up in ranks marching, one stands up front, one stands in the rear. The one that stands in the front is the number one person, and the one that stands in the rear is the number two person. They sing the cadence. So you got to have a big, loud voice and sing the marching songs as everybody marches along. Well, ours got sick and dropped out, and I can't remember what the training instance was, and I had to step up and yell or something like that. So I ended up getting that job. Um, and I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, but I had the voice to do it. So they kept me on, and I stayed and did that job for the remaining 6 weeks and ended up getting promoted out of it. But yeah, it was a blast.
Now, do you have any advice for anyone else that's kind of just starting, that's a new recruit?
Um, yeah, my my advice would be volunteer. Always go 110%. Like life is short. Life will smoke past you. And hindsight's 2020. Take every chance you get and always volunteer, right? Because most of your peers are going to say, "Oh, when you get to boot camp, you don't want to be the first guy. You don't want to be the last guy. Just blend in, blend in, blend in." Um, and in the first 2 weeks of boot camp, if you volunteer, it's for a rewarding reason. They're going to ask for volunteers. You're going to end up getting a good position, or you're going to end up getting a reward out of it. Same thing in the fleet. If you show up to your first duty station, your first shop, your first ship, whatever, if you just start volunteering for stuff, you're going to stand out. So just like a civilian, right? When they're going for a new job, they're gonna circulate their resume, right? And hope they have a good resume and they get a good job, do a good interview. So if you volunteer, eventually it's going to lead to having a good evaluation, right? So in the Navy, every year we have what's called an evaluation. It's basically a resume of what the heck did I do for the Navy in the last year. A good evaluation means promotion. So, for example, once you make, like when you're eligible to, let's say, make the rank of E5, Petty Officer Second Class, um, the wait from Petty Officer Second Class to my rank, E6, is 3 years. But if you have a good evaluation, it's only 2 years. So if you're constantly volunteering, um, I assure you, you'll stand out because most of the peers and the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds, they don't have a great work ethic. Some of them really learn that once they get into the Navy and their eyes get opened up and they either fall in love with their work or they have good leadership or they get inspired or what have you. But if you volunteer, it's going to pay off. You're going to stand out.
Alrighty. Well, I kind of want to cap this off. As a recruiter, I want to ask you: is there any misconceptions you feel about recruiters, or anything you think people might get wrong about you?
Yeah, I think yes. Me specifically, yes. Don't get me wrong. Stereotypes exist for a reason. There are bad people out there. It all comes down to my morals, your morals, who someone is as an individual. And recruiters do get maimed as sleazy used car salesmen. It happens. I can't account for every person's actions out there, but I can tell you that I didn't realize the reputation that recruiters had until I became a recruiter myself. Because I walked into my recruiting station and I said, "Let's go. I want to do this." And he was a great recruiter. But at the same time, there are people out there who may have not considered the Navy, and a recruiter might go into their high school and talk to them, whatever. But also at the same time, anything that comes out of my mouth, if you're sitting in front of me at my desk talking about the Navy, you can go look up on the internet. I've always prided myself on telling exactly how it is, telling the truth, telling it straightforward, because we live in the age of the internet. You can go look it up. So it would not behoove me to tell a fib, and that's also bad for business, right? If I mistreat you, if I lie to you, if I lead you around, or if I embellish, you're going to go tell your peers, who are going to tell their peers, and who are going to tell their peers, and pretty soon no one's going to want to join the Navy in this area.
Yeah.
So it's just foolish business to do in the first place. Do I think it exists? Yes, but I think it's foolish.
Well, thank you very much for talking with us today. It was a pleasure. And thank you so much for saving us and unlocking that car for us.
Absolutely. I'm glad to help. Glad to help. Thank you for having me.